Hey there, sewing friends. Welcome to my channel, Ro Can Sew. I'm Ro, and this is #Friday Sews. Friday Sews is a weekly sewing update video. So what's been going on in my sewing room this week? It has been eventful. First of all, I will say that I am quite envious with those of you who are able to record these videos in one take. This is not my first take, nor my second, or my third. Outside of the errors that I'm making when I'm talking, the surrounding environment has not been conducive to make this a smooth ride. That said, I will just move on. I want to start this video off by mentioning that the previous video I put out was about the Simplicity 9479 jacket that I just finished to go with the pants that I previously made from the same pattern. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who watched that video. And for those of you that left kind comments, very much appreciated. I thank you very much. I'll try to leave a card in case anyone has not seen that video and would like to see it. I'll try to insert the card thing to those two videos. In my last Friday Sews episode, I mentioned what my next projects were going to be. And I was going to make the Simplicity 3961. I wanted to make the gauchos. This is a very simple pattern. It is out of print, but it's very much like the pants I already made as far as the number and type of pattern pieces. Obviously, the design is different. This has a much wider, fuller leg, but it is also intended to be a shorter length. It's not intended for full length. At least I don't think so. The model that is pictured here doesn't have any letters next to her, so I'm not sure which length she is pictured in. But irregardless, this just has your front pieces, your back pieces. The backs just have a dart in it. And then there's a side front piece to help finish the pocket opening. And then the front and back waistband, but this pattern is referring to it as yoke pieces. I guess maybe because of the width, I don't know. It is also designed to be worn 1 inch down from the hip. So I don't know if that makes a difference as to why it's called a yoke versus a waistband. I don't know. Maybe someone can let me know in the comments. My measurements put me into a size 10. That is kind of the size that I've been making recently with the big 4. I did not make any adjustments to the pattern prior to cutting my pattern pieces out. I decided to cut the longest length because I'm not very good at determining what hem length I want on myself right now. So I wasn't sure if I was going to want this length to be shorter or longer on me. So I just went ahead. I had the fabric to work with, so I cut the longer view. I cut the size 10, and I did not make any adjustments to the crotch, between the crotch and the waist length. There, I have noticed on some pants, I do need to remove a 1/2 inch, do a petite adjustment. I'm only 5 feet tall. These patterns definitely are not drafted for someone who is 5 feet tall. So I have been noticing that occasionally I need to remove a 1/2 inch from that area. I did not do it on these pants, and because, look at me, I have been creating and keeping track of some flat pattern measuring. So I haven't been sewing pants long enough, and usually when I have been sewing, I've just been doing more decorative elements and I haven't been focused on fit. I don't want to stress myself out about fit, but if I'm going to continue to be in a position to do this, I do want to increase my ability to do fitting. So what I started to do is just kind of keep a handwritten log for right now. I could obviously put this in my computer at some point, but for right now I just hand wrote it. And I am keeping track of the measurements, the finished measurements, the waistband width, the front rise, the back rise, not including the seam allowances. So like what the finished garment would be all the way from the top of the back waistband all the way around to the top of the front waistband. And I've broken that down in columns. So I have like the back rise, the front rise, the pattern number, the width of the waistband, and then the total of that length. And I am trying to use this to help me better grasp an idea of the whole crotch length and the crotch curve so that I can get better at making those decisions and adjustments on my flat pattern pieces rather than kind of just winging it and testing my fabric and then deciding, well, the next pair I will do lengthen, shorten, insert adjustment here. So this is my first step at making an improvement there. And what I noticed was when I added up all of those measurements for the pants that I'm working on now, I ended up with 25 inches. And that is the smallest sum that I have had with regards to pants that I have made recently thus far. So I knew that I was not going to need to remove any length, likely wouldn't need to remove any length from these pants, which is a surprise to me. Even the pants that I made recently, those are almost 26 inches. It's almost an inch longer. I think it's really like 25 3/4. And I still sometimes, depending on how long I wear the pants and how much the fabric stretches out, sometimes I'm unsure as to whether I need to reduce the waistband just to bring that in a little bit more snug, or whether I actually need to reduce the length of the front and back rise. It's still wearable, they're perfectly comfortable, but I do notice that there could be a little bit of room there that I could make adjustments for. Anyway, the point is that the ones I'm working on now measured an inch less than those, so I was pretty confident that I probably could make this without any petite adjustment to that area of the pattern. The other interesting thing about keeping a log on this is that I'm able to see not only the length of the entire rise, but then I can see how each pattern has divided that up. One pattern might have more of that distance in the waistband because the waistband might be 2.5 inches. Another one might just have a 1-inch waistband, and then how the pattern has divided the total amount up between the front rise and the back rise is also interesting to compare. So I'm finding this helpful for myself. So with that said, I cut out the size 10. I didn't make any adjustments anywhere to the length, and I was progressing pretty well. It's a pretty easy pattern. I was going to do some decorative stitching on the waistband and on the pocket openings, which I did do. I can just show you where I'm at on them. They're not finished because I ran into a little snag this week, but I'll get to that later. So I do have my waistband on. I did the same thing with these pants that I did with the ones I made previously. I did put a strip of interfacing on the wrong side of the front pattern pieces so that I could stabilize this angled pocket opening just to keep it from stretching out while I worked on it, to keep it from stretching out while I did some decorative stitching on it, to stabilize that area. So yeah, I just put a little, I think it was about a 1/2 inch strip of interfacing on the pocket openings before I did all my decorative stitching on there. The waistband, I also did decorative stitching on, and I constructed this waistband. I kind of did the order of operations a little differently. Sometimes I've noticed when I've been working on waistbands like this, when I put the waistband onto the pants first and then I stitch the facing to the waistband and finish it, I must be being rough maybe with my fabric. I run into an issue sometimes where my facing isn't ending up being smooth. It's like rippling, it's kind of stretching out, it's not matching very well the size to the front. This time I did something a little differently. I didn't interface both of the pieces. I just interfaced the outer waistband because I wanted to add some stabilization so that I could do decorative stitching on it. But I did that first. I sewed the waistband itself, put the interfacing on, did my decorative stitching, tried to be careful to be sure where it was going to cross at the side seam so it would be somewhat even. But then I sewed the facing to the waistband at the top, and then I sewed the waistband to the pants so that I could then flip over and finish my waistband on the inside. For some reason, I felt like getting the two waistband pieces, the facing and the outer portion, stitched together first, I was hoping would help reduce any stretching out of the fabric when I went to finish the inside. And I also decided not to turn under the waistband in this instance. So the waistband facing, I just serged and I tucked up the seam allowance of the waistband as you would. And then I just kept the facing flat. I just serged the edge and then I just top stitched that down. And I didn't even do stitch in the ditch because of all the decorative stitching I did on my waistband. I just used as close of matching thread that I had on hand, and I actually outlined the entire waistband with very tiny stitches just inside of the seam allowances, just to keep the waistband nice and tidy and flat. I did do all of the understitching and all of that when I put the facing on. But the other thing that I did different this time is that I decided to use, well, I used what I had on hand. I decided to just use a regular zipper. So a lot of these patterns, when they have the zips on the side, they recommend a visible zip. But if you've seen any of my videos, you know that sometimes I struggle with that. Getting a working zip and dealing with all of the bulk, it's just sometimes doesn't work well for me. So I had a standard zip. However, this zip is not a locking zip, so it can come undone more easily than a zipper that does have a locking mechanism. So first of all, I did what my Vogue sewing book is referring to as a centered zip. So I sewed my side seam from the hem up to where the zipper was going to open at a regular stitch length, and then from there up I did a basting stitch length. That way I could just insert my zipper on the inside, laying it face down over the seam. I hand basted that, and then through all of the layers I just stitched on the right side completely around the zipper. So it's just a centered zip. It still looks tidy and neat, but it's not quite the same impact as an invisible zip, and I'm okay with that. It functions very well. It worked well. It was much easier for me to put in. I really liked that. However, because the zipper is not a locking mechanism at the top, I decided to put one of those little tabs on the inside for extra security, but I did it a little bit different this time. Because I had realized I was going to want to do this ahead of the time, I just created my little flat piece and I inserted it in the seam, within the seam allowance. So it is sandwiched between the waistband and the facing. It was just tucked in there after I put the zipper in and before I completed the waistband facing, so that it's all nice and neat on the inside, and it just looks a lot tidier than the way I had done it a few pants back. Outside of that, this isn't pressed yet, and I haven't finished the hem. I was trying to debate how I wanted the hem to look. I'll see if I can insert a little video of me wearing it, debating on the hem length. I think that I have determined that I'll probably, this is folded up about 2 inches. I think I'm going to take the 2 inches off and I'm going to do a little raw hem. I'm not going to add any bias to it. I'm not sure if I will create my own hem facing on the inside, because I think I'm going to do just a little bit of decorative stitching along the hem at the bottom. But exactly how that's going to look, I'm not 100% sure yet until I start working on it. The top, which I conveniently don't have the pattern with me, the Mimi G top, I'll see if I can insert a picture, that I was going to make to go with this, I'm holding off on tracing that pattern and getting that started only because I noticed that the Mimi G pattern, let me just grab it. Sorry about that. I just wanted to grab it so I could talk about it. Also, I'm trying to talk quickly because it's getting very hot in here. This was the pattern top that I was going to make to go with the pants that I just showed you. But I'm noticing that this seems very cropped, and when I looked at the pattern pieces where the waistline falls is very close to the edge of the shirt here. And I know that the pants that I'm making are designed to sit 1 inch below your waist. So I'm going to wait until I get my pants finished, and then I'm going to try to do like a lightweight tissue fitting of the top just to see a little bit better where that might end up on the hemline. I really don't want to have a gap between the top of the pants and the bottom of the shirt. One, I'm just temperature sensitive, so I'm just not comfortable with that. And two, I don't know enough. I'm thinking that I'm going to have to lengthen it probably by an inch is what I'm guessing. But I just want to get the pants finished first so that I can better determine exactly where they're going to sit on me and make that decision about adding the length or whether I need to maybe think about a different shirt. Maybe I need more of a boxy top that I just tuck the front into to go with these pants. Or maybe I need more of something simple like this raglan type top and just put elastic at the bottom so that it seems like it's a crop top or that it gives the illusion of it being tucked in. I'm not sure yet. Feel free to leave your suggestions in the comments if you feel that there's a particular style of top that would look best with this. I'm not good at styling things, so this is all a new experience for me. What else happened in my sewing room this week? Well, I got partway through on the pants and I ran into a problem with one of my sewing machines. And if I can move my chair here, I don't know if you can see that my sewing machine is kind of taken apart over here. So I am fortunate. I do have two Singer heavy duty sewing machines, a 4423 and a 4452. Don't tell my 4452, but my 4423 is my favorite of the two. It just does much better buttonholes and it just feels looser. I've had it longer, so it was my first machine. The 52 is newer. But I noticed this week while I was sewing, it started to skip stitches. And that's not common for me. I don't typically have that problem. So I did my normal troubleshooting. I changed the needle, I took the bobbin thread out, took the needle thread out, rethreaded everything, double checked all of that, and it was still skipping stitches. So I did a little bit of YouTube research, and it seemed like maybe there was something going on with the timing. Now, I do know that I have been putting a lot of heavy denim and lots of layers through my machine recently. And I know that there were a few times where I started stitching, and because I was so focused on one thing, I wasn't careful enough and maybe I didn't lower the presser foot and I got some nesting and things that occurred under there. I'm wondering if when those things happened, if some of the fabric got sucked down into the plate, and when I was trying to extract that, whether that all of that ended up causing something to get off with the machine, like the timing. Now, I'm not in a position to be able to take my machine anywhere right now, so it's very imperative that I get this figured out on my own. So I have been disassembling it. I've been watching videos on how to try to check the timing. I tried to follow those tutorials. I don't know if I've just been under a lot of stress lately, and I just haven't had really good results. In fact, I managed to make it worse to the point where it wasn't holding any stitches. So it was piercing and puncturing the fabric, but no stitches were staying in place. I didn't record any of this for you because, to be quite honest, sewing is kind of holding me together right now. And the thought that I'm just down to one machine, which I'm grateful to have, but I just have the one now. So if something goes wrong with that, I won't have any machine to use. I got a little bit emotional this week over the whole thing. So nobody needed to see that. But I have been working on it. Like I said, it's not holding stitches, or it wasn't holding any stitches. So I started to think that maybe it had something to do with not just the timing, but maybe the bobbin case tension was off. So I started to fiddle with that. Anyway, I've gotten it to a point where it is now at least drawing up the bobbin thread, which it wasn't doing before. So it started to draw up the bobbin thread, but then it was just all bobbin thread on the top. So I don't know if there's something going on with the needle tension now, or whether I over-tightened the bobbin tension and I need to go back and loosen that. And then is that how much of that has impacted the timing. Do I need to redo the timing? I've been fussing with it a little bit at a time because if I work on it too long for any one period, I end up getting very overwhelmed and stressed over it. So I have gotten it to the point where it is picking up the bobbin thread. It is occasionally holding a stitch, but it is not being consistent yet. So I still don't have everything lined up how it needs to be. And I would be appreciative if you could just send some good vibes my way that I get that figured out, because I would very much prefer to be using that machine, only because right now I'm not doing anything with buttonholes, but that machine does much better on buttonholes for some reason. Like I said, that's the older of the two machines. This one is actually a newer machine, but it just does not seem to make very nice buttonholes. And maybe I just need to work with the tension on that also. I don't know. But yeah, so it's been that's the week in my sewing room. So I will finish the hem on the pants. I will be continuing to work on my sewing machine, and hopefully I can get that figured out. And I will then move on to the next project, which is hopefully a top to go with the pants. So yeah, let me know what's been going on in your sewing room. Have you experienced this with a sewing machine before? And do you have any tips or tricks that maybe you could recommend? Do you have any suggestions as to what you think? Should I go forward with my Mimi G top with the pants that I'm making, just add some length to it? Or should I try to pick a different top to go with my pants? And I think that's about it for this week. So yeah, that's all for me. Hopefully this video is the one that makes it to you, and hope you have a good weekend. And until I see you again, take care. Bye.